Okay, so without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so today the agenda, I'm just going to touch through a couple of the things I'm going to go over. So primarily I'm going to be focusing on the competence criteria for, as I said, the associate and member grades. But we're also going to be understanding criteria and doing a bit of a detailed analysis on some of the competencies. Writing your report, so we'll touch on that, as well as the application. And then, as I say, we'll be doing a live Q&A at the end of the session as well. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, I'm just going to talk about the Engineering Council very briefly. So the Engineering Council, they set and maintain the UK standards for professional engineering competencies, and they give us our license to give out the professional engineering titles of EngTech as an engineering technician, iEng, incorporated engineer, and CEng, chartered engineer. There are 35 other UK institutions that do this, such as the IMechE, the civil engineers, the IET, the big names that you might have heard of. But for those of you working within building services, will be the most relevant institution for you to get your professional registration through, as well as your membership. So there are 5 generic areas of competence and commitment for registrants to our corporate grades, and the CIBSE competence criteria for the associate and member grades are based on these. So as you can see, the A and B competencies, engineering knowledge and theoretical and practical methods. There's also competence C, which is around your responsibility, D, which is around your communication and interpersonal skills, and then E, which is your commitment to engineering. So your A and B competencies are your technical competencies, and they'll look at how you solve engineering problems through your practical experience and academic knowledge and understanding. C, we're looking at your level of responsibility, and then D very much interlinks with that, and it's looking at how you communicate and interact with others. And then E kind of encompasses a few different sub-competencies, but that addresses the CIBSE Code of Conduct, your CPD, ethical principles, and health and safety. But we will touch on that as we go forward. And you'll notice for associate and member, the competencies for D&E are actually quite similar. So you've really got to make sure you pay attention to the wording, because there are some subtle differences in the criteria. But as I say, I'll go through that in more detail later on. And for the associate and member grades, as you can see, there's 17 competence criteria for the ACIBSE, and then 23 for that member iEng grade, which I'll talk about a little bit later as well. So depending on which grade you go for, it'll either be 17 you have to address or 23 criteria. Okay, so how to understand your competencies. So each competency will be broken down into sub-competencies that will make up either one of those 17 criteria, as I mentioned, or 23, that you'll need to show evidence of. On the slide, you can see we've got competency A section, which is broken down into the headline, which is the overall meaning of what the competency is ultimately looking for, the objective, which is the headline of what techniques and skills you will need to apply for the particular competency. The range, this is broken down into more detail and illustrates what types of examples you could include, and the evidence examples. So that shows specific examples of what types of evidence we are looking for in your report. And this can help jog your memory when thinking about experiences in your own career episodes that you would have done. Now, all the competence criteria follows the same format, relevant and do refer to the relevant fact sheet for the grade that you're applying for. So I've included hyperlinks to them at the bottom. So for associate, you'll be following fact sheet A21. If you're applying for member iEng, you'll be following IM21. And then for member CEng, you'll be following fact sheet M21. So as I say, they're hyperlinked at the bottom. So when I send you the slides, you'll be able to click through and that'll take you straight through to the relevant page. You've just got to make sure that you hit the 45,000 word count and address all the competencies in your report. As I say, I'm going to talk about this in more detail and how to write the report as we go further along. Okay, so the competence criteria for ACIBSE and MCIBSE. The competencies for each grade are grouped under 5 areas of competence that the Engineering Council, as I have previously mentioned, they have set. So on the slide, there are competency headings for associate and member, and the difference in the criteria is highlighted in yellow. As I say, we'll send them to you so you can read this at your own leisure. Now, the main thing to look out for when you're mapping your career episodes or experiences to each competence is to look at that wording. So this will give you a clearer picture of which grade you are suitable for, but most importantly, will help when writing your report. So essentially, the more strategic your role, the higher level of membership you can apply for. And for example, in section C, as you can see, an ACIBSE asks you to provide technical and commercial management, but for MCIBSE, it asks you to provide technical and commercial leadership. So you can see a distinct difference there. Okay, so knowledge and improvement. So section A is looking at your knowledge and improvement. An associate here is demonstrating a certain level of understanding which they can apply and contribute to continuous improvement, whereas a member is demonstrating a higher level of knowledge and understanding to which they are then using to analyze current issues, drive innovative solutions, and promote continuous improvement. Now, I'm going to go through some examples of what successful applicants have written in their reports to illustrate the A2 competencies. So I will, in each section, choose a competency to go through in a bit more depth, as we don't have time to go through everything. But as I say, we'll send this to you guys at your own leisure. So I'm going to look at A2 in this example. So for an associate member, A2 says use a sound evidence-based approach to problem solving and contribute to continuous improvement. So I have an example. An associate member gave an example of a project where they witnessed the progression of its installation and helped with the coordination and design issues that arose to ensure a successful completion. This member was working on a project that involved the removal of asbestos from a building and worked with an asbestos specialist. This member led on the decision making and coordination of the services on behalf of the client to ensure the approach met their requirements. So you can see some technical understanding. However, for MCIBSE A2 example, this says engage in the creative and innovative development of engineering technology and continuing improvement systems. A member has given an example of a project that needed various tests done to make sure it was completed successfully and mentioned that a further assessment to review the actual usage of it was conducted following completion of the project. So this assessment was used to help inform the design for other projects with a similar scope for implementing sustainable design and worked closely with the mechanical and electrical engineers to optimize a micro CHP scheme. So across the two examples, you can see an associate delivered the project, worked with others, and helped with the coordination. However, the member delivered the project, but it was more in depth and implemented lessons learned in other projects. So the member will have the accountability to deliver the project, whereas the associate contributes to its delivery. So you can see a distinct difference there. So moving on to competence B. B will look at techniques, design, solutions, and specifically design and development of processes, systems, services, and projects. So an associate is working on existing projects with clients, interpreting a project brief, and adding process value. So often they are implementing design solutions and contributing to their evaluation. So very much participating and contributing in projects, whereas a member is being asked to solve problems on a project by analysing the brief and having a solution. So specifically looking forward and identifying and improving opportunities in a project and working with the clients. And they could also be managing the implementation of design solutions and evaluating their effectiveness as well. So as I mentioned, I'm going to choose a specific subcompetency and go through an example of what successful applicants have written in their reports to illustrate. So in this example, I'm going to focus on B1. So for ACIBSE B1, this individual needs to identify, review, and select techniques, procedures, and methods to undertake engineering tasks. The example is an associate member personally arranged and carried out a survey of existing services within the building. The maintenance programme had highlighted that existing warm air units have a combination of poor maintenance and not fit for purpose. The person chaired the meeting to present the potential problems and propose technical proposals to solve potential problems. And MCIBSE B1 identify potential projects and opportunities. So this example, the member identified several areas where they felt the business could progress further during the time with their employer. The majority of these stemmed from working closely with and understanding the requirements of their clients, including building surveyors, building managers, and tenants. Some of the products they significantly developed include energy audits, utility and sustainability reports, technical advisory roles, and heating and cooling reviews. Then moving on to competence C. So C is going to look at implementation, people, improvement, leadership, and management skills. And an associate has overall management of a project and they supervise it. They manage and supervise tasks, people, and resources to plan and budget, but they will also manage the continuous quality improvements. Whereas a member has a key leadership role in the project and they will plan, budget, direct, and control tasks, people, and resources. And the member will bring out continuous improvement through quality management. So I'm going to go through some examples of what successful applicants have written, and this time I'm going to focus on C1. An associate member for C1 plan for effective project implementation and they manage and contribute. So in this example, an associate member, during site changes, this person witnessed the progression of an installation and they helped with coordination and design issues as they arose to ensure a successful handover. They also shadowed the commissioning processes, reviewed and signed off a commissioning report. MCIBSE C1, they plan for effective project implementation and they lead and manage. So in this example, a member working on a boiler plant replacement was instructed by the client to replace the plant completely. After having conducted a study on the plant, they identified that there was a series of risks and the member immediately initiated work to mitigate these problems. Now, through their previous experience, they were able to provide an accurate budget plan for the work by issuing a tender documentation, which included an itemized cost schedule for the client. To ensure they had the right people on the job, they requested CVs of project managers and subcontractors and method statements for specific risk items. They then went on to interview the subcontractors and scored their submission in detail before eventually taking them on the job. So you can see how thorough an MCIBSE individual has to be when getting key people to contribute to a project. Okay, then competence D, as I say, very much interlinks with C there. This competence looks at your communication and social skills. So you need to give examples of where you write reports, letters, proposals, and specifications. And if you prepare and deliver presentations as well, that's a really good example to use. You may also, for example, use record discussions from meetings and their outcomes. And you'll notice that these are the same for both associate and member. However, the evidence examples may be different. So again, look closely at that competence criteria fact sheet when applying. So the associate contributes to meetings and they prepare technical documents, whereas a member will lead the meeting and prepare more complex documents and more likely present on strategic matters. The member is expected to raise the awareness of risk in proposals, whereas the associate should contribute to the awareness of risk. In addition, a member should take responsibility for productive relationships, whereas an associate will contribute to productive working relationships. So again, going to focus on a specific competency, and this time we're going to look at D2. So an associate D2, present and discuss proposals. In this example, an associate applicant was working on a project on a replacement boiler, and the client expressed a necessity to change fuel source from on-site oil fuel storage supply to a natural gas being supplied from the distribution main. This person then went on to research practical sustainable proposals that could operate effectively within the existing site construction and constraints. They presented this to the client with the aid of PowerPoint, showing their calculations and sketch drawings. And after that successful presentation, their recommendations and proposal was agreed. And again, you can see D2 for MCIBSE, the wording is actually the same. However, this example will show the difference in the kind of standard that we would expect from someone applying for MCIBSE. So this member needed to investigate the heating and cooling issues in an office space. Having consulted the client's budget, they went on to prepare the scope for work by obtaining costs from subcontractors. They then presented their bid to the client in appropriate technical detail. And during that presentation, they emphasized the process flowchart, which clearly identified the client's concerns and then how they were going to resolve them within the kind constraints and budget. Okay, and then looking at competency E, this looks at the code of conduct, your CPD, sustainable development, and ethical responsibility. So both member and associate are required to apply with the institution's code of conduct. So make sure you're aware and understand the CIBSE code of conduct, which you'll find on the website. This section also looks at how you undertake engineering in a way that contributes to sustainable development. An associate and member are very similar, but an associate is making recommendations to use products and services which maintain and enhance the quality of the environment and community, whereas a member should be making innovative and creative recommendations. Also, the associate encourages stakeholder involvement in sustainable development, but the member is required to gain buy-in and secure their involvement. You're also required to give examples of how you maintain your continuing professional development and how you assist others with their own CPD. And this could include both a structured CPD, such as a course or formal learning, or unstructured, such as self-study or reading. For both grades, you're expected to give examples of ethical principles, so you would be required to demonstrate how you have applied or upheld ethical principles in your career. And again, I'm just going to go for a specific subcompetency within these 5. So I'm going to look at E3. So an associate E3, undertake engineering activities in a way that contributes to sustainable development. So in this example, an applicant working on a project convinced the architects to adopt LED lighting rather than traditional fluorescent tubes, which provided greater flexibility and energy efficiency. Member E3, exact same wording. In this example, a member applicant designed and implemented energy efficient solutions using a variety of methods. These included automatic lighting and ventilation controls in the lift to power down the lights and fans after a period of time. So you can just see, as an MCIBSE individual, you will be doing a whole host of things as opposed to something maybe really, really specific. Okay, so now we've gone through the competence criteria, we're going to start looking at how to write your report. Now, your engineering practice report should clearly demonstrate you have achieved competence at a level of responsibility suitable for associate or member grade. You need to review your career to date, and you can use any experience across the entirety of your career. Just select the strongest examples which demonstrate the criteria, giving detail about what you've done, your role and responsibilities in a particular career episode, and how you know about the different aspects related to it. Your report may be project-based or competency-based, and samples of both are available online. So think about specific projects or events. For example, what was the event? What did you learn? And then expand on that and how it impacted your development. An introduction to your report should give a general overview in just a few sentences of the type of work and training you've done in your career, but it should also list in table form the different projects or career episodes you mention in the body of your report. So just remember to reference all the 17 competence criteria, or again 23 if you're looking at MCIBSE ING, in your engineering practice report, and ensure your report is between 4,000 to 5,000 words, and that can be excluding reports, career episodes, introductions and listings. And then include a title page for your report which states your word count. Summarize the key features of each report, so your client, scope, value, and dates, and describe in detail the incidents which relate directly to the competence criteria. So clearly stating which competence you are claiming to demonstrate, and you can do that either down the left-hand side or the right-hand side, the body of the text. Clearly state your role and responsibilities, and use the first person when you're writing your report. So I, me, my, to show that the reader your personal contributions. But again, if you're not entirely sure how to put your report together, we do have other methods of support available on top of this webinar. So we do actually hold membership application workshops, and this is a half day, and it's actually run by our professional interviewers, where you come along and you write a big chunk of your report on the day. And Nada was one of our successful applicants this year, who's now got her CEng, and her image is hyperlinked. So if you want to read about what she says about the workshop, please do. As I mentioned, we've also got sample reports. You can structure your report in one of two ways. This is competency based, where you have an example and you address A1. Then you have a second example and you address A2, and so forth. Or you can do it in a project-based way, where you address multiple competencies within an example. So this person started with E3, then they've gone to A1. So it doesn't really matter which order you address the competencies, as long as it's relevant within the context of the example. And there is no preference as to which way the interviewers want your report. If you want to do competency-based, that's great. If you want to do project-based, that's also absolutely fine. One of the things that we do, which are very, very popular, is our phone surgeries. So again, if you're not sure if you're going in the right direction, you write your draft report. That gets sent off to one of our professional interviewers, and they review it a week or 2 weeks in advance. Then my colleague Jill schedules in a phone surgery, and you speak to an interviewer on the phone for an hour, and they'll go through your report with you and give you pointers on what to do, what to expand on, and perhaps what to cut as well. And those are £20 for the hour. And then we also hold closing date surgeries. These are primarily at Balham HQ, but we are trying to do some regionally as well. And the next one of those is on the 8th of January 2020. And that is a 20-minute first come, first served slot with an interviewer. This is a free event to attend. You bring along your report, and they will sit down on a one-to-one basis with you and go through it with you. So as I say, lots of other support available for you if you're not entirely sure what to do. Okay, so your application for ACIBSE and MCIBSE. So in order for your application to be complete, you'll need to submit the following documentation alongside that report. So the first step is the application form with your sponsor's requirements. So the only requirements that we really have for the sponsor is they need to have known you for at least 1 year in a professional way, and they need to be at the same level of membership or engineering council registration you're going for or above. So if you're going for MCIBSE, the individual that you would need to have as a sponsor would also need to hold MCIBSE. But if you're going for CEng, that person would also need to hold Chartered Engineer with the Engineering Council. They don't necessarily need to be a CIBSE member. They could be a member of a different institution or recognised authority. As long as they're at the level, that's absolutely fine for you to use that individual. Then secondly, we need your CV. So doesn't have to put every role you've ever done in there, just your relevant ones, and then include some information on your roles and responsibilities, just so the interviewers can get a feel for the types of experience you have, and just do that in chronological order. Then you have the main body of your report, which is 4,000 to 5,000 words, where you address either the 17 competencies for ACIBSE or MCIBSE, or 23 competencies for MCIBSE ING. And you will give examples of your professional experience. Then you have your organizational chart. Again, doesn't have to have loads of detail, but I would recommend doing at least 1 or 2 tiers above and below where you sit in your company, just again so the interviewers can get an understanding of the types of responsibility you may hold. And if you know any other incorporated engineers or chartered engineers within your company, I would recommend just slotting them in as well, just so again they can see where they sit in relation to yourself. And then you need to provide a development action plan, which is 150 words per section for your short, medium, and long-term goals. And this can be anything from personal goals to institution goals or company objectives for the year. So anything you want to put in there is absolutely fine. But if you want more information on that, do check out the pages on our website for associate and member, and it will give you the competence criteria as well as guidance. Okay, and that is the end of the webinar. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pause it, and then everyone do ask questions. I'm going to give it a few minutes, and then I'll start addressing the questions for the live Q&A. So thank you very much for signing in and listening, and I look forward to seeing your questions.